Hello viewers, Super GT here with a double dose of Gran Turismo Sport. So in this video, both of my FIA races from Saturday. We have 2 laps around Nürburgring Nordschleife, but that is preceded by this. We have a race around the Willow Spring Circuit, which we haven't actually raced around in a fair amount of time. Coming through turn 1, Kousa's going to greet us with a nice little jump off the side of some sand dune there. So nice little welcome to the video. Now this, you may have seen from the opening screen, a fairly strong lobby, some big names in here, which of course makes it very difficult to get a good result. And normally when you've got a strong lobby like this, I'm looking for a top 10. I think anything in the top 10 is a good result, and especially in qualifying, as I typically struggle with qualifying. Now we've seen around the circuit many times before just how difficult it is if you make a mistake. If you go wide, you just get sent to Narnia and you're not coming back for a long time. So obviously you're going to really have to try to avoid that at all costs. I'm typically a mistake-making person. I make a lot of mistakes on this game, and it'd be nice for once to try to have a race where that doesn't happen, especially here, because mistakes are amplified massively. You make one and you lose about 10 years of your life. Crossing the line to go 9th, only half a second off the lead at this point here, not too bad, or about 7 tenths actually at that point there, after someone else crossed the line. Now this is a reminder of just how bad things can get. So the driver ahead just drifting very wide onto the grass. Luckily for him, didn't get sent to Narnia, actually managing to rejoin the tarmac. But it's into turn 9, the final turn of the circuit. Just goes a little bit wide, and I'm very guilty of just watching him instead of where I'm meant to be going and just follow him off. Luckily, by this point, this was just qualifying, and I set my best lap. And you can see here, starting 10th. In fact, it was so close that from 2nd to 15th was only a second, and from 2nd to last was only 1.5 seconds. Tidgney on pole there, setting a lap half a second better than everyone else, which was absolutely mental. And if you want to see his perspective of this race, of course, go and look at his channel, GTA Tidgney, or just Tidgney Racing, and he live streamed this race. If you want a front-running perspective, better than Super GT, of course. So go and have a look at him. He's a very, very good player on this game, one of the best in the world. Definitely worth having a look if you haven't already heard of his channel. Okay, here we go then. Starting 10th in a strong lobby, and as I said, really going for that approach of no mistakes, just really trying to have a consistent, calm race. Try not to get involved and try not to get sent to Narnia / Shadow Realm / Bottle Job / anything like that. Trying to minimise those at all costs. The sand can suck you off, much like Nubai on Forza 7. So, you know, there's always that danger when you have to suck sand, and the sucking force is quite strong here. You know, once you go off, it really doesn't want you to come back on. So you have to be really, really careful. Now into the sweeper, we are under pressure. We're surrounded by Frenchies around here at the moment. Lots of Brits and French players in this race. Through lap 1, seemingly okay, not really much in the way of drama, although the Lamborghini just up ahead getting a poor run out of the final turn, and he's going to get passed around the outside by his fellow Frenchman. I'm going to get a nice cutback on the way out of turn 1 and into the sweeping right hand turn, just about keep the position, so up into 9th, and 13 laps on offer here. We're looking to pit at the end of 6 or 7, presumably, maybe 6 for the undercut. We'll see how other people go about their business, as we almost get swiped from behind by the Lamborghini, just about avoiding contact. Through the technical section at the top of the hill, very, very difficult corner. Difficult to get the line right and difficult to get your traction down without wheel spinning the car. And you can see there the driver ahead also having difficulties with traction. And that's going to give me a run down the back straight towards the final turn. It can be very sketchy, and as I say, you don't really want to make too many mistakes, so putting yourself in the wrong position can really lend itself to getting murdered at some point. So far a fairly safe race in 9th, sitting in 9th. We've gained a position as the driver behind having a nice trek across the grass, across the sand, sorry. No grass to be seen around here really, that's all died a long time ago. Through turn 1, we have a half-second margin. Actually, no, the gap's actually increasing behind. Maybe some contact of some sort. Gap above a second now behind. So still focusing on the group ahead. We have Calster, who's normally a lot faster than I am, actually doing quite a good job here, I think, just to keep up with him. He's gone for his normal Lamborghini. Driving very wide over the ridge. He's gone. He's completely been sent very wide. And I've gained a position out of that up into 8th. As we go down into the sweeping left-hand corner. Crucial corner this, as it runs out onto the back straight. And then over this little crest. Can be tricky. Harder than it looks like, that corner there. Just look ahead. Crazy John. He's going to go flying off to the right-hand side. He just could not resist. And, well, again, another position up to 7th. By virtue, really, of just staying on the track. Lots of people were guilty of making minor mistakes there, and it looked like he kind of fishtailed a little bit and then had to fight the car a little bit too much and ended up off the circuit. So that's unfortunate for him, but it's good for me. Up to 7th, we've gained 3 as a result of other people just making mistakes. Really, haven't really done too much, and this is an approach you can take. You know, just don't make mistakes, and the people ahead may well do that. Normally it's me making the mistakes and other people profiting from my lack of ability or consistency. This time around a little bit different. So Calster drifting very wide up the hill. That's going to put the pressure on him from the Frenchman behind, who's going to look for the move. Can be difficult to put your nose up the inside. I get a bit of a slide on the exit down the hill. I'm going to lose a tenth or two as a result. As long as I stay within that magic 5 or 6 tenths, then I am going to get pulled along in the slipstream, as indeed I will be here. So the gap from 5th to 4th now opening up. The race now seemingly having calmed down a little bit on the first laps, of course, when everyone's so close. I was very curious to try and make some early moves. The guy from 2nd off the track, and look behind, our Lamborghini friend's having another episode. He gets completely sent to the Shadow Realm. Another portal existing here at Willow Springs. Through turn 6, or sorry, through at the end of lap 6, in 6th place. That was actually turn 9. Into the pits and out we go. I've actually lost a little bit of time to the guys ahead, so I was battling with the PRST driver plus Calster. Lost a little bit of momentum and time to those two. As a result of the pit stop, they are just ahead. You can see them in the group, just ahead of this little battle for 8th. So maybe a second or two I lost in the pit stops. I didn't have a good final turn on the last lap though. Just trying to lose a minimal amount of time passing this Porsche who is yet to pit. So he's on poor tyres at the moment. I'm on brand new rubber, coming through the sweeper, and he's just going to leave me plenty of space. Very good driving, I think, there. To give us the room to easily go on the inside, minimal time loss for the pair of us. Looking ahead, interesting development with the PRST driver. Couldn't quite really gather what was going on. He just kind of went really wide, and it seems that he must have damage because he's going really slowly now into turn 1, drifting wide, going very, very slow. Just about tried to get past him, and we do. So I couldn't really quite gather. I think he might have got hit from the guy going into the pit lane. It was quite hard to see exactly what happened, but he quite clearly has damage of some sort. So I'm up to 5th, and again, 5 positions gained now as a result of not making a mistake. So is that bottle job going to happen? Is it going to appear out of nowhere in this race? We have about 5 laps left to go after this one, so plenty of time for that to still happen. But at the moment, just driving fairly comfortably. The gap behind just under 2 seconds to Treviso, who is a known fast player and normally faster than I am. I come to the end of the race and the gap was 3 seconds, so I kept my position at 5th place, which I'm pretty pleased with, coming towards the final turn. And just having a look at the top 2, just before the line, Tidgney goes and wins the race. Incredible finish. It was I think it was about a tenth between them. The TRL driver had a penalty and he had to serve it, and then just about got pipped. So again, have a look at Tidgney's channel for that race because it was really, really close. And ultimately for me, finishing 5th, and I'm really pleased with that result. Not much in the way of mistakes. Just had a nice, solid, safe race for once, you know. I am always crashing at some point. And so good to come through in 5th and pick up a solid result in what was quite a good lobby with a fair amount of good drivers in there. So overall, pleased with the Manufacturers' Cup race. We move then to the Nations' Cup around the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Here it is, 2 laps in Group 3. And for this one, I've gone for the Volkswagen. This is a weird, curious looking machine. It's like, I don't know, the top half of the car's just been sliced off by some mechanical machine which can do that. I don't know if there are probably machines that can do that, yeah. Just slice the top of your car and then they put a spoiler on the back. So this was it was a really weird opening lap. You see that I was going really slow on the out lap because it's such a long lap that you can just destroy your tyres in one lap. And you can see just how good my tyres are here, despite doing an entire lap it took 12 minutes. But starting the lap, my tyres weren't too worn. So if you drive really quick on that out lap, you just murder your tyres, and then you've got poor tyres for your actual flying lap. On this occasion, you got 14 minutes basically to go around, go really slow, make the most of that 14 minutes. I took 12 minutes, and minimising the tyre wear. This is my actual lap. Coming up towards the final couple of corners. Sketchy car, this, not easy to control, it must be said. I think I struggle with this car quite a lot. It's just a little bit sketchy on the controller and hard to control. We are coming up to the line though. What's it going to be? 8:33 and a half. That puts us 5th, which isn't too bad a time. Actually, it turns out to be 6th place in the end, which could be worse. And I was just pipped by 2 tenths by the Swiss guy in 5th. So maybe a rather crude joke about the Nations Cup, but on a serious note, as we come up to the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, let's be thankful that we live in a peaceful time where we can actually, instead of killing each other in trenches, we can race each other online. That's a much better way for everyone. That's better for everyone. We're not shooting each other. We're racing. That's better. We live in a better world now. Let's be thankful for that at least. Okay. Let the racing commence into turn 1 and turn 2. The German actually coming off badly there with contact from the Dane. I'm into the back of the Swiss guy. I'm going to profit from that contact on the German up into 5th. So 2 laps around the Nürburgring Nordschleife with the GP circuit. A fairly long lap, of course. You saw the qualifying lap, 8.5 minutes around the outside of the Swiss guy. I'm surprised he gave me so much room actually into turn. What time was it? 1, 2, 3. Turn 3. Yeah, he gave me so much space, which I was quite surprised about. He could have just easily come across on the exit of the hairpin, just getting a little bit too much throttle down, getting a little bit too eager to accelerate away, and I've gone from 4th down to 6th place. So I'm back to where I started, unfortunately. And this is the thing about this car: very sketchy. Doesn't really lend itself to calm, consistent racing, which we just saw around Willow Springs. But it does look like it's the fastest car. It just takes some real precision to drive it quickly. So I'm going to really test myself here by driving it and seeing how well I can do. It is a very quick car. There's no doubt about that. It dominated the top 10 leaderboards for this event, but just a little bit tricky to drive, and maybe not always the best race car. Of course, when you're in practice, you can take as many laps as you like. A little bit wide there into the Russian. Make a bit of contact, so I back out, let him go ahead. Now coming through the downhill left, he's just going to grace 2 wheels on the curb and he's going to spin himself around. Oh man, he was in such a good position, and my mistake earlier to lose 2 positions, that was pretty annoying. But he's going to go down and lose maybe, I don't know, more than 10 positions there. as a result of that crash, and exactly at the wrong time. That is the worst place to have a crash, because you're just starting the Nordschleife loop and it's really hard to overtake on the Nordschleife loop. So now, well, he's really messed his race up there just by grazing two wheels onto that curb, getting a little bit eager on the throttle, and well, just sending himself spinning round. And this race, Nürburgring Nordschleife, is one of those tracks where you really do have to rein it in a little bit. There's lots of tracks where you can really push very, very hard, and it's fairly easy to be consistent. But the Nürburgring, it isn't a forgiving circuit. Much like Willow Springs in many ways, you make a mistake and it will not forgive you. It will just bite back at you. So you have to be very, very careful indeed around both the circuits you've seen in this video. Very, very difficult circuits to master, and they are not very forgiving at all. We find ourselves now in 5th, coming down the hill. Very fast, swooping section this, as we're looking still behind the Swiss guy. I think at this point here I am quicker, but as I say, it's just very difficult to overtake around here. The track is barely 2 car widths wide, and you know, if the car ahead just puts his car in the middle, that's it almost. You can't actually overtake. So a lot of the time you're kind of waiting for maybe the long straight going onto the GP loop, or some corner on the GP loop. There's plenty of overtaking opportunities on the GP circuit. Around here you're looking for a mistake most of the time and trying to capitalise on an error in front. So the race has reached a bit of a stalemate here, still stuck behind the Swiss, and again you can't really send a move there. It's just far too dangerous, far too risky. You're probably just going to end up getting a penalty or dead in the wall, something along those lines. At the moment the gap's fairly consistent between the leaders. I'm 6 seconds off of the lead, and obviously right on the back of this guy, who is in turn about 1.5 seconds off of the Dane in 3rd, who in turn is about 1.5 seconds off of the Italian in 2nd. And again you see there, the car ahead just puts himself in the middle. Nothing I can do really apart from just bump draft him. He actually puts his hazard lights on there, I think. I mean, I was actually just genuinely trying to overtake him, but it turned out to be a bump draft, if anything. So, I don't mind bump drafting really too much. You're just trying to avoid getting damage. That is the main consideration, I think, with the bump drafting. And actually, you see ahead here, just scanning ahead, the Dane's going to go up into 2nd, up the inside into the carousel, as a result of the Italian making an error, obviously on that run up towards the carousel. Couldn't quite catch exactly what that was. On the way out of the turn, and you can see they're just getting a little bit too eager, similar to the mistake I made. And it seems as though the sharp, slower corners, very, very difficult to get the traction down on this car. So perhaps should have realised that when I made the mistake earlier in the race. Coming through this section here, towards the end of the Nordschleife loop, before we get towards the long straight, the car really, really rooted at high speed through the fast-flowing corners. This car is actually very, very nice to drive, very, very, very easy. It's just through the slower turns it gets very, very twitchy, and it's very easy to make a mistake. So it's actually at the slow turns where you actually have to be more careful and more precise with the driving. Coming up towards the last section here of the lap, so the leader goes into the pit lane, and I make another mistake, a little bit wide, luckily holding it before I go really into the wall. And quite interestingly, 2 of the guys ahead, so there's 4 people ahead of me, 2 of them decide not to go into the pits, which is actually a very interesting strategy. And I'm going to come in for some hard tyres here. You don't lose too much time from the pits, but of course you do lose some time. And it's such a long lap that the tyre wear is going to be a massive factor by the end of this race. And just coming out ahead of this group, which is, I think, crucial, absolutely crucial. If I lost another second there, I would have been behind that group of 3, 2 or 3, and I would have lost so much more time as a result of that. Again, so that's a crucial little moment there, just coming out ahead of that group, and I'm not going to lose any more further time to them unless they do some savage lunges on me during this GP loop. But it wasn't until this point here, still in 8th, so I've got some positions to gain. It wasn't until this point here at Flugplatz. Is this Flugplatz? No, this isn't Flugplatz. It's a little bit later than that. Anyway, down the hill you can see a group of 3 ahead. So we have the Frenchman in the Subaru, I believe it is, and we have 2 Swiss guys. The Swiss guy I was battling earlier is now into 5th, so you see just the difference in the time that he's gained from the last lap. You see him just up ahead there. He's maybe 3-4 seconds ahead of me now. when really I was very, very close to him for the majority of the first lap. Definitely lost some time here, but I can definitely regain it. We also have this obviously very interesting split strategy because the leaders, first and second, are on very old tyres, so they didn't go for the pit stop. They stayed out, and it's going to be very, very difficult for them to control their car, especially as the race goes on. The longer this race goes on, their tyres are going to get more and more worn, and it's going to become increasingly difficult for them to control their cars and hold off the people behind. I mean, the thing that's going for their favour though is that the track is so narrow they can easily defend. Despite saying that, actually go quite easy past the Mustang. But I suppose, once you have the poor tyres, you're just going to get poor traction at the exit of every turn, and the people behind can just sort of overtake on the way out of turns instead. So again, just scanning ahead, now behind the Frenchman in the Subaru, but looking a bit further ahead. I said that I've gained slightly on the Swiss guy I was battling earlier, and he's caught up behind a Czech in fourth, who also has opted to stay out of the pit lane. So this is this second lap here is really a tale of two stories where people like the Frenchman ahead did not opt to go for the pit stop, and they're going to struggle around on old tyres. Of course, they gained time. They lost, or I lost maybe 10 seconds or so for going into the pit stop, and these guys would have saved that, but then they're going to lose it again, presumably, with the older tyres. I'm going to look for the move now up the hill as we come towards the carousel. It's going to be a really sketchy move. As I say, it's such a narrow track. Trying to get past anyone on any part of this Nordschleife loop is just really difficult, really, really sketchy at the best of times. Just about getting the job done. Up into 6th place. I'm back to where I started, with still the possibility of gaining more. Looks like this Czech guy up ahead is on the back foot. The Italian in 3rd, who was 2nd, who's lost a position. So the Bonkers guy, the German in 2nd, who also went into the pits, has now displaced the Italian. He's back into 2nd, and he's going to be hunting down the Dane in the lead. Meanwhile here, the Czech making a mistake through the carousel, of course as a result of having much worse grip. So we're in the same car, but you can see here really the comparison between us, as I have much better tyres than he would at this moment. So again, I couldn't quite gather what was going on there. Bit of lag, and I was guilty. I was thinking I was going to be guilty of hitting him off. But luckily I didn't get a penalty. I didn't get an SR warning, so there was no contact. He just went wide, and there might have been some lag, which might have put him off, but I don't know. As a result of all of that, I'm up into 5th, and this was the leader. So also in the same car as me. This guy was leading the race maybe 30 seconds ago. Now he's down to 4th, and I'm looking to go through for a move. Not quite going to happen there. You see just the difference in traction off that turn, and I'm just going to easily sail past. That's really clear difference between the tyre wear between the two of us. Your traction is just far worse. You accelerate a lot slower than you would. Your braking distance become a lot larger, so you have to brake earlier, and your car just will not turn as well as it normally would. So it's these three things in combination which makes it so much harder to drive on worn tyres. So the Italian in 2nd has done a good job, I think, of driving on the older tyres. The Dane just behind, of course, succumbing to some sort of mistake as a result of the worn tyres. I think ultimately to do the pit stop was the better strategy. To not do it was quite brave, and of course you do have the possibility of holding people off around this track. It's quite hard to overtake, so you can hold people off if you drive perfectly. So some of the guys behind just making mistakes and leaving small openings which we could exploit. So this is really a tale of two stories. Two guys in the lead, 1st and 2nd, going for the pit stop. I'm in 4th, I went for the pit stop. And the Italian ahead, he was 2.5 seconds at this point here. Let's see if we can gain on him, because he does have a penalty, and that will affect the final result. So he's got 1.7 there, and coming through the final turns of the circuit and the race, I've got that gap down to 1.6, 1.5 on the run up to the line. It's going to be close. He does serve the penalty, and I'm just finishing less than 2 seconds behind him. It was a very close finish ultimately, and if I'd maybe just taken one corner a little bit better, I might have been able to get past him right on the line there. Ultimately though, going to finish 4th, which wasn't too bad a result. I think it could have been, or perhaps should have been, a 2nd or a 3rd, if not for a couple of little mistakes there. Pretty happy with that race. It was not too bad a race in quite a difficult car to drive. But let me know your thoughts. I'm looking forward to see what you think about the 2 races in this video. And thank you, of course, for all of the support in all of the videos, all the liking, all the the live stream views, all the video views, whatever it is. Thank you all so much for that. But that is all from me today. Thank you very much for watching as always. I shall see you next time. Goodbye.
Listen.